You know that feeling when you walk out to your garden in the morning and everything just looks tired? The leaves are pale, the stems are thin, the plants are alive, but they are not thriving. And you have done everything the books say. You fertilized, you watered on schedule, you even tested your soil pH, but something is missing and you cannot quite put your finger on it. I lived in that frustration for close to 20 years. Now, does everything grow 3 times bigger overnight? Let me be straight with you. No, that is not how gardens work, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. But here is what I can tell you from my own experience, and this surprised me more than any gardening trick I have ever tried. When I started applying the soil building methods I learned from my Amish neighbor Daniel, my plants responded in a way that genuinely shocked. Within about 7 to 10 days after my first application, the leaves on my tomato plants were noticeably dark green. The stems thickened up. My pepper plants, which had been sitting there doing nothing for weeks, suddenly pushed out new growth like someone flipped a switch. It was not magic. It was biology. And what the Amish understand about soil biology is something most of us have been completely overlooked. Daniel used to tell me you can pour chemicals on dead soil and get a crop, but you cannot get a garden. It took me a long time to understand what he meant by that. But once I did, it changed everything. Today, I'm going to show you the Amish approach to activating your soil so that it actually comes alive and starts feeding your plants the way nature intended. We are going to cover 5 steps, all using things you either already have or can get for free. And stick around to the end because I am going to share an Amish fall bed preparation technique that sets you up for explosive spring growth before you even plant a single seed. Now, the first and most powerful tool in this system is something the Amish have used in various forms for generations, and it is something you can make in your backyard in 24 hours. Aerated compost tea. And I do not mean the bottled stuff you see at garden centers. I mean a living, breathing liquid that is absolutely teeming with beneficial microorganisms. When you apply it to your soil, you are not just adding nutrients. You are introducing billions of bacteria and fungi that immediately go to work making the nutrients already in your soil available to your plant roots. Most soil has nutrients locked up in forms that plants cannot access. These microorganisms are the key that unlocks them. Here is exactly how to make it. Start with a 5-gallon bucket and fill it with water. If you are on city water with chlorine, let that bucket sit uncovered for 24 hours before you start, because chlorine kills the very organisms you are trying to grow. Once your water is dechlorinated, take 2 to 3 generous handfuls of finished compost, the dark, crumbly, earthy smelling kind, and put it into a burlap sack, an old pillowcase, or any breathable cloth bag. Drop it into the bucket like a giant tea bag. Now, here is the step that makes the real difference. If you have a small aquarium pump, and you can find these for just a few dollars at any pet store, drop the air line into the bottom of the bucket and let it bubble for a full 24 hours. That aeration is feeding oxygen to the beneficial bacteria, and they multiply explosively in that environment. You are essentially brewing a concentrated microbial army. If you do not have a pump, you can still make compost tea by stirring the bucket vigorously 4 or 5 times throughout the day. It will not be quite as potent, but it still works. After 24 hours, pull out the compost bag, squeeze the extra liquid back in, and toss the spent compost onto your garden bed. Now, dilute the tea at roughly a 1-to-10 ratio, 1 part tea to 10 part water. You can apply it 2 ways. Pour it directly at the base of your plants as a soil drench, which delivers the microorganisms right to the root zone, or put it in a spray bottle and mist it on the leaves as a foliar feed, which coats the leaf surfaces with beneficial organisms that outcompete the harmful ones. I do both. Daniel taught me to do this every 2 weeks through the growing season, and that rhythm has served me well for the last 5 years. Here is what you should expect. You are not going to wake up the next morning to tomato plants the size of trees, but within about 7 to 14 days, if your soil had low biological activity before, you will start to see real, visible changes. Darker green leaves, thicker stems, more vigorous new growth, plants that just look healthier and more alive. That is the soil biology kicking in, making nutrients available that were already there but locked up. Now, the second step builds on that biological foundation, and this is one that Daniel considered absolutely essential. Deep organic mulch layering. Most of us mulch our gardens. We throw down an inch or two of wood chips of straw and call it done. But the Amish approach to mulching is different in a way that I did not appreciate until I saw the results with my own eyes. Daniel did not just mulch to suppress weeds or retain moisture, though it does both of those things beautifully. He mulched to feed the soil. He built what I would describe as a living blanket over his garden beds, and he layered it with intention. Here is how he did it, and here is how I do it now. Start with a base layer of finished compost about about 1 inch spread evenly across the bed. On top of that, add a layer of aged leaf mold, which is just decomposed leaves about 1 to 2 inches deep. If you do not have leaf mold, regular shredded dried leaves work fine. On top of that, add a layer of straw, not hay, which has weed seeds, but clean straw, about 2 to 3 inches deep. The total depth of this layered mulch should be roughly 4 to 6 inches. What happens beneath that blanket is remarkable. The bottom layers, the compost and leaf mold, are in direct contact with the soil, and they are slowly feeding the microorganisms below. The straw on top insulates everything, holds moisture, and creates a cool, dark, damp environment that earthworms and beneficial fungi absolutely love. Within a few weeks, if you pull back the straw, you will see white fungal threads called mycelium weaving through the lower layers. That is a sign of incredibly healthy soil biology. You will also see earthworms, and lots of them. Daniel used to say that if you can count 10 earthworms in a shovel full of soil, your ground is alive. If you cannot find any, your soil needs help. This layered mulch does something else that surprised me. It moderates soil temperature. In the heat of summer, the soil beneath stays cool and moist, which keeps roots happy and reduces plant stress. In the shoulder season, it holds warmth longer, extending your growing window by a week or two on each end. That adds up to a lot of extra production over a season. The third step is one the Amish have relied on since before anyone alive can remember: heavily aged manure. And I want to emphasize that word heavily because this is where the Amish approach diverges sharply from what a lot of gardeners do. I have seen people go to the farm, pick up a truck bed full of fresh horse manure and spread it on their garden beds thinking they are doing their soil a favor. And I understand the impulse. Manure is nature's fertilizer, but fresh manure is loaded with nitrogen in a form that is too intense for plant roots. It will burn them. It can also carry pathogens and weed seeds that create more problems than they solve. Daniel aged his manure for a minimum of 1 year, not 6 months, a full year. He had a dedicated pile behind the barn that was always at least a year old before it touched garden soil. By that point, the nitrogen has mellowed into a slow release form that feeds plants gently over months. The harmful bacteria have died off. The weed seeds have broken down, and what you are left with is a dark, crumbly, almost odorless material that is one of the richest soil amendments on earth. Here is how to apply it. Spread a layer about 1 to 2 inches thick across your garden beds. The best times to do this are late fall, so it can work into the soil over winter or early spring, at least 3 weeks before you plant. Work it gently into the top 4 to 6 inches of soil for chicken manure, which is much higher nitrogen than horse or cow manure. Go lighter, closer to 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Rabbit manure is gentler and can be used with slightly less aging time, but I still recommend a minimum of 6 months. Now here is what makes the Amish approach with manure different from just tossing it on the garden. They are not thinking about the manure as fertilizer, are thinking about it as food for the soil biology. Aged manure is absolutely loaded with beneficial microorganisms. When you combine it with the compost tea and the deep mulch layers, you are creating a layered biological system where every component feeds the others. The compost tea introduces fresh microbes. The mulch creates the perfect habitat for them. The aged manure provides a slow, steady food source that keeps them thriving for months. That is why the plant response can be so dramatic. You're not just adding one thing. You are activating an entire system at once. If you do not have access to livestock manure, do not let that stop you. Check with local farms, feed stores, or community gardens. Many horse farms will let you take aged manure for free just to get it off their property. But even without manure, the compost tea and deep mulch layering alone will produce a significant improvement in your soil biology. Manure is a powerful accelerator, but it is not the only path. Now, what I'm showing you today is just one piece of a much bigger picture. The Amish don't do anything in isolation. Every technique connects to a whole system, and that system is what makes the difference between a garden that struggles and a garden that practically takes care of itself. I spent years learning how it all fits together, and I've put everything into a step-by-step guide called the 30-Day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol. It's got the complete 5 defense layers, the companion planting charts, the 4-bed crop rotation, All of it laid out day by day, so you're never guessing what to do next. If you want to go deeper than what we can cover in one video, there are 2 easy ways to get it. You can click the link right down there in the description below this video, or if you're watching this on your TV or your computer, just grab your phone, open up the camera, and point it at the QR code on screen right now. It'll take you straight to the guide. No searching, no typing anything in. All right, let's keep going. Now, the 4th step is where everything we have covered comes together into something truly powerful. I call it the soil drench method, and it is something I developed directly from watching how Daniel treated his beds at the start of each growing season. He did not just do one thing to his soil. He layered his inputs in a specific sequence, and the combination produced results that were far greater than any single step on its own. Here is how to put it all together. In early spring, about 3 to 4 weeks before your last expected frost, start by spreading your aged manure across the bed at 1 to 2 inches thick. Work it gently into the top few inches. Then build your deep mulch layers on top, the compost base, the leaf mold, and the straw, just like we covered earlier. Let that sit for about a week. During that week, the microorganisms in the manure are already starting to wake up and interact with the compost and leaf mold above them. Then after that first week, brew a fresh batch of aerated compost tea. But instead of diluting it the normal way, I want you to try something Daniel showed me. Take your full-strength compost tea and pour it slowly and evenly over the entire mulched bed. Do not dilute it for this first application. Let it soak down through the mulch layers and into the manure-enriched soil below. What you are doing is sending a concentrated wave of active microorganisms down through all those layers of organic food. You have prepared for them. It is like setting a match to kindling. The biological activity in that bed will explode after that initial drench. Go back to your normal diluted applications every 2 weeks through the season. But that one concentrated opening drench at the start of the season is what sets the tone. Within 10 to 14 days, you will see the difference in any transplants or seedlings you put into those beds. The growth will be visibly more vigorous than beds that did not receive the full layered treatment. I have done side-by-side comparisons in my own garden for 3 years now, and the difference is consistent and clear every single time. The 5th step is one that does not involve adding anything to your soil at all, and it might be the most important thing the Amish taught me: the morning walk. Every single morning, Daniel walked his garden, not to weed, not to harvest, just to look. He would crouch down, pull back the mulch in a few spots, check the soil moisture, look at the color of the leaves, watch how the plants were responding. He told me once, the garden will tell you everything it needs. You just have to show up and pay attention. I started doing this about 6 years ago, and it changed my relationship with my garden completely. Here is what to look for after you have applied the methods we covered today. Within the first week, pull back your mulch in a few spots and look at the soil surface. You should see it getting darker. You might notice small white fungal threads starting to form. That is mycelium, and it is one of the best signs of healthy soil biology you can find. Within 2 weeks, dig down a few inches and look for earthworms. If they are showing up in numbers, your soil is coming alive. Look at your plants. Are the newest leaves darker green than the older ones? Are the stems thickening? Is there new growth where things had stalled? Those are all signs that the biology is working. The morning walk also helps you catch problems early before they become disasters. A yellowing leaf might mean too much moisture under the mulch. A wilting plant in otherwise healthy soil might point to a root issue. When you are out there every day, you see these small signals before they become big problems. Daniel never had pest emergencies because he caught everything when it was small. That daily observation is worth more than any product you can buy. Let me share some patterns I've noticed over the years that separate the Amish approach from what most of us were taught. I made every one of these mistakes myself, so there is no judgment here, just honest observations that might save you some time and frustration. The first pattern is feeding the plant instead of feeding the soil. Most conventional gardening is built around the idea that you deliver, nutrients directly to the plant through synthetic fertilizers. And it works in the short term, but it completely bypasses the soil biology. Over time, the microorganisms that should be cycling nutrients for your plants starve and die off, and you become more and more dependent on purchased inputs just to maintain the same level of production. The Amish approach is the opposite. Feed the biology in the soil and let the biology feed the plants. It takes a little longer to see results the first season, but once that system is running, it compounds. Your soil gets more fertile every year, not less. The second pattern is treating mulch as decoration instead of food. A thin layer of wood chips to make the beds look tidy is not what the Amish are doing. Their mulch is a feeding system layered with intention, designed to decompose into the soil and keep the biology thriving. When you start thinking of mulch as a slow-release meal for your soil instead of a cosmetic cover, everything changes. The third pattern is using fresh manure or synthetic nitrogen for a quick boost. I understand the temptation. You want results now, but fresh manure burns roots and introduces problems. Synthetic nitrogen gives a quick green up but does nothing for long-term soil health. The Amish patience with aging manure for a full year is not stubbornness. It is wisdom. They know that slow inputs build lasting fertility and quick fixes create dependency. The fourth pattern is ignoring the soil in winter. Most of us put the garden to bed in the fall and forget about it until spring. The Amish never stop building soil. Their beds are always covered, always being fed, always biologically active, even in the coldest months. That continuity is a huge part of why their soil is so much richer than ours. They never let the cycle stop. Now, here is the bonus technique I promised you at the beginning, the Amish fall bed preparation. This is something Daniel did every single year after his last harvest, and it is the reason his soil was ready to produce at full capacity the moment spring arrived. Here's exactly what to do. After your last harvest in the fall, do not just pull the spent plants and leave the bed empty first. Chop up any remaining plant material and lay it directly on the soil surface. Then spread a 1 to 2 inch layer of aged manure over the top. Follow that with a thick layer of shredded autumn leaves about 3 to 4 inches deep. Finally, if you have time, broadcast a cover crop like winter rye or crimson clover directly into the bed and let it germinate through the leaf layer. If your first frost is too close, skip the cover crop and just add an extra inch or two of straw on top. Here is what happens over the winter. That entire layered bed slowly decomposes. The earthworms pull organic matter down into the soil. The fungi break down the leaves and plant material. The manure releases nutrients gradually. By the time spring arrives, you pull back whatever surface mulch remains and you find soil that is dark, loose, alive, and ready to grow. No spring trip to the garden center, no bags of anything. You did the work in October and the biology did the rest while you were inside by the fire. I have been doing this for about 4 years now, and the difference in my spring soil is remarkable. My beds are ready to plant at least 2 weeks earlier than they used to be, and the plants I put in take off with a vigor that I never saw when I was starting each spring from scratch. It is not complicated. It just requires the discipline to invest in your soil when there is nothing growing in it. And that is something the Amish have understood for a very long time. Now, what I have shared with you today is a real piece of the puzzle, but it's still just one piece. If you're tired of fighting the same battles every season, if you want a garden that actually works with you instead of against you, then I'd really encourage you to check out the guide I put together. It's called the 30-Day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol, and it's everything I've learned from my Amish neighbors over the last 3 decades, organized into a simple day-by-day plan you can start this season. It covers the full 5 defense layers to build a garden that defends itself from the soil up. It's got the complete 4-bed crop rotation system that stops disease and pests before they ever get a foothold, and it includes the companion planting field guide so you know exactly what to grow next to what and why. Now, there are 2 easy ways to grab it. The first way is to click the link in the description right below this video. Just scroll down a little and you'll see it. The second way, if you're watching on a television or a computer screen, is to take out your phone, open up your camera like you're going to take a picture, and hold it up to the QR code you see on screen right now. A little link will pop up at the top of your phone screen. Just tap that and it'll bring you right to the guide. No typing, no searching. Either way works. I think it's the best investment you can make in your garden this year.